Greetings everyone from the friendly confines of bead 326. We've learned about the scientific revolution and how that challenged older, more established notions of authority like religion and tradition. And that scientific revolution is going to be one of the foundations of the Enlightenment, which is often associated, but not exclusively, with the 18th century. Now that's the century in which the American and the French revolutions took place. And sometimes we call the 18th century the Age of Reason. So we're going to establish four major ideas of the Enlightenment today, and the first one is this. Number one, reason is the new authority. Like Copernicus and Galileo and Newton, everything must be subject to experimentation, and you have to explore something to try to establish whether or not it's true. So reason is the new authority. Sometimes it supplements tradition and / religion. So this would probably be a good way to explain Newton, who didn't think that his ideas required someone to surrender all their beliefs in the traditional Christian teachings of miracles and the things that are in the creed, like the virgin birth. So sometimes reason is just a new authority, and it supplements tradition and religion, but there's a more radical side to it. Sometimes it replaces all older forms of authority. So there are going to be people in the Enlightenment who are more radical thinkers, and they're going to say that the only things that are worthy of belief are those which can be established by reason. So we could apply this to someone like Thomas Jefferson, for example, who took the Bible and cut all the miracles up because he didn't think the miracles happened. So this is what the more radical thinkers are going to do. In the French Revolution, in our chapter on the American and French revolutions, when the radicals get control, they will take this to another degree and try to get rid of Christianity altogether. So that's principle number one. Reason is the new authority. Now, here's number two. This one's been very influential. All people are basically good. Now I'm going to refer to a paragraph later on in the notes that I'm going to send you, the outline that you can use when you listen and take notes on this lecture. And you'll see that the older explanation for why people did bad things was because they were sinful, because there was something inherently wrong with them. Now, here's the Enlightenment thinkers. No, that's not true. All people are basically good. And they believe this so completely that they really believed that they could create the perfect world if you could rid the world of older forms of authority and educate people and set them free to follow their basic human nature, which they claimed was good. So that's the second principle. All people are basically good. It's a very optimistic view of human nature. Here's the third principle. Progress. We put it this way: a near perfect world, or we'll say society, can be created if you follow principle number one. So Enlightenment thinkers, and we can use Jefferson here as an example, are very optimistic about what can be accomplished. I mean, after all, they're claiming that they live in a time of enlightenment, which they're basically saying that all those who came before them were pretty much living in darkness. Look at that quote about Jefferson on the study guide for chapter 19, and what he says about the abandoning the medieval way of looking at the world and embracing the new Enlightenment way of looking at the world. So, to some of these people, what does the perfect society look like? Well, it should be free from monarchy, which is an artificial form of political control that is imposed upon people, that claims to be divine authority. If one of the Enlightenment ideas is the equality of people, the new world should be free of slavery, for example. No one should be allowed to own anyone else. So it's not coincidental that the abolitionist movement really catches steam in the 18th century. The idea that we should get rid of slavery. And maybe a third way, and this is something that the radicals are going to argue, a third way of establishing a perfect society is to get rid of organized religion, which some of these people, the more radical people, think has been requiring people to believe in things that are not true, that are not reasonable, that can't be established by reason. So that's the third principle. Now, here's the fourth. And this is mentioned in the chapter 19 study guide, but a bit more about it here. If you're going to do away with things like miracles, then you really need a new understanding of religion and how the whole world works. And so, as we learned in the chapter 19 study guide, a new form of religion appeared in primarily the 18th century. It was believed probably by people like Thomas Paine, maybe Benjamin Franklin, and probably Thomas Jefferson. And it's called deism. It acknowledges that there is a God. But the world was created by that God. To function on the basis of natural laws like gravity, and the system doesn't need to be interfered with. So God, there's some kind of a God, a higher power. In his Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson refers to this being as a creator, with a capital C, who created the world to operate on the basis of natural laws. We have the ability of the use of reason to discover what those laws are. We learned that from Newton. And these people think that there's no need for this God then to interfere with this perfect system that he created. And one of the things that motivates them to adopt this is their belief that miracles can't happen because they are violations of these natural laws. So, deists often referred to God as some kind of a clockmaker who made a clock. You can imagine a clock that didn't need batteries and didn't need electricity. It just runs on its own. So, there's the 4 major Enlightenment principles. Probably the most important one is the first one. Reason is the new authority. Sometimes an additional authority to tradition and religion, but sometimes replacing in more radical forms of these ideas, tradition and religion. Number 2, and this is really important, they believe that all people are basically good. If you just educate them, set them free, the ideal society will appear and you won't even need that much government. The third is their acceptance of the notion of progress. They really believe that they had found what was required to build a perfect society, get rid of monarchy, slavery, and perhaps even organized religion. And then here's this new conception of religion, that there is a God, but the world was created to function on the basis of natural laws. This God does not need to interfere with his creation and operates on the basis of natural laws. So, these ideas were all floating around and they were being accepted by a lot of the leading figures of 18th century society like Thomas Jefferson, and they helped to inspire the 2 major revolutions that we will look at, the American Revolution of 1776 and the French Revolution in 1789. So that's our look at Enlightenment principles.